Welcome to episode 195 of Ask M&R Productions, a series where I answer your questions. If you have a question I want to answer in next week's episode, leave it down in the comments section below. And if you enjoy the videos, make sure you hit the like button. Anyway, episode 200 is coming up pretty fast, and I've seen a lot of people asking about it. I just wanted to announce now kind of what I'm thinking for what I want to do with that episode. And what I wanted to do was allow people to submit videos of themselves asking questions. And then I would exclusively use those for that specific episode for episode 200. I thought it'd be a really cool, unique way to, integrate people into my video that have been asking questions for years now. And yeah, so that's, the idea that I have for episode 200. I will announce more on that in the coming weeks of how and where you will submit and kind of the limitations to the submissions, because I expect a lot. Anyway, first question up for this episode from Scott Davis says, "Hey Ryan, you're given the chance to pilot one vehicle or ship in the Star Wars universe. Which one would you choose?" I think the most fun one, quite simply, and the most practical for my daily life would be some sort of speeder bike, basically the one you see on Endor, essentially. That would be the best thing to zip up to the gas station and back, although I'm sure it doesn't take gas, but to get food and whatnot. It's just a nice zippy ride, open air. You ride it down to the beach, ride it along the beach. I feel like a speeder bike would be the most fun thing to ride around on in the Star Wars universe. Mr. Lee says, "How excited are you for the Lego Office set?" Obviously, The Office is something that I am super high on. I was in love with it when I first started watching it. I've watched it 4 times through now over the course of 2 years. And it is such a relief to finally know that the battle is over. Lego Office is happening. Thank God. Basically the reason Lego Office couldn't happen for the previous few years was a licensing issue. There was another company that had the license to create Lego, but not Lego Office stuff, and I've taken a look at some of that on the channel. You're more than welcome to check out the Knock Office video. Love that term coined by Brickitect, but that set was, very disappointing, obviously, given the potential for a Lego one, but they just couldn't do it, and now it's happening. So my thing with this is you have to do it right if you're Lego. Now, you could do 2 things here. You could release a set with the CMF line, and that solves all of your problems, I think. But the more realistic thing is they're only going to release a set, and in that set, they gotta release a lot of minifigures, because basically you can't leave anyone out. You have to have, I don't know, I would say there's 12 main characters in the first few seasons before they introduce a whole slew of extra characters in the latter seasons. I really think this has got to be a set that costs between $100 and $150 and includes 12 minifigs, and it's got to be big. It's got to have all of the seating areas for The Office. And I think if we look at what they've done with the previous kind of sitcom show sets, it gives you the idea that they could very well release a set costing up to $150, including 12 minifigures and having the full build of the main room of The Office. I don't expect the break room and the back room and all of that jazz, but every part of that main room really probably should be there, with Michael's office, the other office next to it, and of course all of the other seating there. It just has to be the set. And if we look at, Seinfeld, and I can't even remember the others, but they've done quite a few now, these sets have been relatively big, and I don't think they touch the popularity of The Office, and especially with The Office, the popularity among people in our age group, and really all age groups too, but that are going to be in the market for this Lego set. So I think this could very well be the most popular Lego idea set if done right, and even if it's not done right, honestly, The Office just carries that kind of weight. So very hyped for it, and probably won't get to talk about it much more until some leaks and rumors start popping up in a year, but yeah, I look forward to hopefully seeing it come out in about a year. Brock says, "If you could choose what sets came out in the summer 2022 wave, what would the top 3 be?" So I think the 3 most important things, if you're Lego, you got to release in the next summer wave. The first one is, obviously they got to release some episode 2 sets, but I think the most important one is to release an 18+ version of the episode 2 speeder chase set. That's just a set that the community wants. That's a set that I think a lot of people would like to have as a display piece. It just is something that is striking color-wise. Imagine those vehicles on a plain black background of a box art. That's just gonna pop and it's gonna sell. You release that for $60, maybe 50, and you're in the money. Now, the second most important set that they're gonna need to release here is something else to go with Hoth. Now, they've done a lot of Hoth. I'm kind of tired of it, but I still love Hoth. And they're missing something from the Rebel side of Hoth, and that's a snowspeeder. You just gotta have a snowspeeder, and maybe it's time they will finally completely redesign the snowspeeder, but I think a snowspeeder would be at the top of my list as well to release in the summer of 2022, given the AT-AT, the UCS AT-AT, which will play with minifigures and the Battle Pack and the AT-ST. Like, the Hoth stuff needs something from the Rebel side of things, and maybe even Echo base build would be nice, but I think the snowspeeder is the bare minimum there. I think, honestly, like a $110, $120 Republic gunship would make a lot of people happy, and it would be the third most important set I would put out next summer, or an ATTE, one of the two. But I think the gunship, given that the UCS one is out there and they're doing this for the AT-AT, they've done it for the Millennium Falcon. You can have a really big thing at, $700, $800 or $350, whatever. Then you can have something at the $100 range. Those are completely different markets. So I wouldn't mind seeing a gunship that plays with minifigs next summer as well. But those are the three I'd go with. Kevin has an interesting one for us here, and he says, do you think that social media companies will eventually phase out shorts and TikTok type videos in their platform? If so, how would I feel about this? So how I would feel about the short form content on the internet going away is kind of irrelevant here, because I'm kind of indifferent to it. It's something that would be good for me, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, because I just waste a lot of time scrolling through it, and I receive very little to no benefit from doing so. I think there's a lot more value in a longer form video than there is from short-term videos. Now, these short-term TikTok type of things, these 30 to 60 second videos can provide a nice chuckle. It's a great time waster, but I feel like you can get a lot more info out of a YouTube video and just learn more, and it can just generally be a greater entertainment experience. It's also just a better connection between content creator and the viewer. That being said, social media companies aren't going to phase out something that's becoming more popular. Why would they do that? So, no, I don't think they're going to do that, quite simply because it's a growing space. Now, it's not a space that's as monetarily beneficial for them, because short-form content does not produce as much revenue as long-form content, so there's that as well. But we basically saw this kind of happen once, right? We saw Vine come up in like 2013, 2014 or whatever, and it was popular for a year or whatever, and then it just disappeared and they deleted it and it's gone forever. Like, everything on Vine is just done. But those were only 7-second videos, and then they kind of came back with TikTok and YouTube Shorts now a few years later, and those are taking off and working really well. So yeah, I don't see social media companies getting rid of this sort of thing. If anything, it's only going to become more popular over the next few years. It will at some point peak, and I doubt it can ever overtake what we have with longer form content. But nonetheless, it is a space I would personally like to do more content in. It's just something I would be spreading myself thin with, so kind of need to find someone to help me with that. But anyway, it's not going anywhere anytime soon, because the kids love it. Trey says, do you think you love LEGO as much as you do because it has brought you fame and fortune, or do you think you really just love tiny plastic bricks that come together to make scenes from Star Wars? Also, do you still own the Medieval Blacksmith set and do you love it as much as you thought you would? I actually got rid of that when I sold it off to Maddie's minifigures, just because I didn't have the space for it. I did really like it. I did a review on it. I'm very high on the set. It was just a set that I couldn't keep for the space constraints. But to the original question, I think I loved LEGO more before I got, I guess, fame and fortune from it. So there's that. But I think at its base, like, the reason I liked LEGO as a young kid is because it depicted things from a piece of media that I liked, and that's a really basic way to strip it down. Some of my friends in the neighborhood had little LEGO collections and stuff, and a lot of my online friends at the time, and as we got around to 2010, I was meeting a lot of people online that were big into the hobby, so it had nothing to do with fame and fortune at all there. So yeah, it was just like the love of the brick, and so I would say it's that. Whiskey Shred says there's an article going around saying that LEGO is removing gender bias from their product. This makes little sense to me. Does that mean they are going to remove the pink color on LEGO Friends set? Seriously, enough of this madness, LEGO FFS. Yeah, I agree. It is kind of madness. What is wrong with having LEGO sets for girls and LEGO sets for boys? Of course, we'll refrain, but there are some folk that will go out there and be like, oh, this is wrong and that's wrong. It's like, no, I think it's working pretty well. Personally, LEGO's making a ton of money. Most people seem generally very okay with it, except the 1% on Twitter, I suppose, but that's Twitter for you. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure what a gender bias is. All right, so I found a simple definition. It says gender bias is the tendency to prefer one gender over another. It is a form of unconscious bias or implicit bias which occurs when one individual, here comes the white screen. Oh, emojis, unconsciously attributes certain attitudes and stereotypes to another person or a group of people, as these ascribed behaviors affect how the individual understands and engages with others. So I got the first half of that, didn't so much get the second half. I just don't see where this is an issue with Lego sets, like, at all. Like, my first thought with this was like, oh, so now we can have female, like, criminals in Lego City. Like, all the criminals back in the day were just guys, right? And that's obviously not completely indicative of society, which means it's wrong and it's teaching our children bad things. And it's like, oh, come on. But point being, like, there have been female criminals in Lego City. I looked it up. It was a couple years ago. But, like, this just seems to me like another thing that a big corporation does to seem like a swell thing. And I don't know. I think this kind of stuff, I'm just not into it. I don't follow it. I'm not a huge politics person. So gender bias is not something important in my day-to-day life. It will not affect me, although it will affect me if it substantially changes the Lego products I buy, I suppose, and it's yet to be seen what that looks like. I'm actually curious if someone in the comments can actually describe this to me, like, in layman's terms, and maybe intertwine some Lego examples. I would love it. It would help a lot, and if I can, I'll definitely highlight it in next week's video, because yeah, I definitely want to talk about this more, but I don't know enough or honestly care enough at this point to do so. Maddie's minifigures, oh, that's ironic, we were just talking about him, says, if the Titanic sells extremely well, do you think we could get a Lego Hindenburg? I think a massive Lego airship would be extremely cool. So the Titanic is gonna sell well. It's the Titanic. It is one of the best looking Lego models ever, in my opinion. The problem with the Hindenburg is it's not the Titanic. It's not as famous as the Titanic, nowhere near as famous as the Titanic. I mean, you could argue that it's close, but it still doesn't have, like, the marketing pull that the Titanic has, I would say. Now, the other problem with it is, unlike the Titanic, it has a flaw in its design for translating to Lego. Lego has done some airship things before, but those were much smaller in scale. They basically use like one big mold piece, I think, and that's kind of all you could do with that. If you wanted something much larger, I just don't see how it works unless you come up with something completely different, kind of like Lego Forma, where you would have panels made of plastic or something covering an interior built out of Lego. I just think it presents a lot of structural issues, as well as the main issue of how do you make the exterior of it look like the Hindenburg, and I just don't see how they would do that. So I think it presents a very interesting case. I would love to see how Lego would tackle a project like this and trying to make the Hindenburg a Lego set. I just don't think they would ever do it. This next question has to have been asked before, but honestly, I don't know if it's ever been asked in the 195 episodes. Dallas says, do you believe in aliens or the supernatural? So I think this one's going to be pretty split if I asked in the comments. The supernatural I don't believe in. Unless we lived in like some sort of simulation, it just doesn't make sense to me that you can just have these things that exist but not in our plane of existence. Maybe it does, but like I don't believe in ghosts or any of that sort of stuff. I mean, when I was 10 years old watching stuff on like History Channel, they got me. I was all in on it, but as I've grown, I just don't believe in any of that stuff at all. Spirits, ghosts, whatever. I think it's all bogus, made up stuff. Now, for aliens, I think that's a very different question. It is impossible for me to comprehend how many other planets there are in the universe. Like, you think we have a solar system that's in a galaxy with like millions of solar systems, that's in a universe with like billions of solar systems with like, there's some absurdly incomprehensible number of planets, and then you think if like only it was like something like if 0.0001% of those planets had life, there would be like a million planets with life. It's like some absurd thing. Now, that's not to say that there's not a small chance that Earth is the only place with life, and it's like a scary thought to think that we are alone in the universe, but it's so big, it just wouldn't make any sense to me that there wouldn't be life somewhere else in the universe. Hunter says, will you make a new room tour video? So my answer for this has been no, no, and no for many months, because I'm like, well, I'm gonna move and then I can just do a house tour. That'd be way cooler. And so as I've come to realize, with the housing market unfortunately just going to crap, that's not gonna be happening anytime soon. At least, you know, I who's to say tomorrow I don't find a house and I'm able to get a deal, but whatever. Anyway, I currently have a room tour scheduled on YouTube for Friday. I filmed it, did all the editing, so it'll be out this week. This question is piggybacking off the question from last week, which asked me if I would take up some sort of job as somebody who basically helped Lego pick which Star Wars sets to make. I can't pronounce his name, so I'll go with PL here because it's capital letters. It says, you disappoint me a bit with saying that Lego would have to pay you. From what I understood, as much as you make on YouTube. Seems like you're doing pretty well financially, buying a house and a sport car in a very young age. Making sure Lego is as good as it can be seems like a dream job, so why is money so important then? You guys can read the rest, I'll leave it up. I'm providing them a service, quite simply. I don't know why you would take a job and not want to get paid for it. Maybe we just fundamentally disagree here, and that's fine. But, I mean, essentially, I would be helping them, at least that would be the idea, make millions and millions and millions of more dollars, and I would just want to be compensated for that. Like, they would benefit from it, and I wouldn't. That just seems flawed to me. And you're certainly not wrong. I think I do very well on YouTube for what I have, but it's certainly, at this point, not money that would set me up for the rest of my life. I would definitely want to be paid for my services if I was going to take something that took up my time for Lego. And like I said, another part of it would be I would lose some of my YouTube income because I would probably be signing an NDA, which would mean I can't make certain content that I make and say certain things, which, you know, takes away videos and therefore the revenue I make on YouTube. So that would have to be supplemented in some way. But yeah, I want to be financially free. So part of that would be when I feel like I'm doing something of worth for somebody or a company or whatever, where they're going to be getting value out of it. Why would I not want to receive compensation for that? So yeah, that's just simply why it is absolutely a dream job. I would love nothing more than to help Lego Star Wars be great in that aspect. But to say I would want to do it for free, I don't think I could say that. Jumble Jammy Joke says, I bought the magazine with the clone turbo tank today. Can't wait to build it. Though, is it me or is it meant to be facing the other way? So congratulations on being able to buy the magazine. I was going to buy it on eBay. I think I should probably order it. But I looked at the art on this now, again, that you mentioned it, and you're totally right. And I thought it was funny because, like, me of 10 years ago, it was so ingrained in me that the turbo tank should go small side forward and then the big side at the back, but it's actually big side at the front, like as the front of the car or the ship or the vehicle or whatever, and then the small side is like the tail end. And that was always really weird to me because growing up I played with the 2005 turbo tank, you know, as a kid, and I always used the other side as the front. So on the art it's the wrong way, and I also had thought, oh, maybe it's just facing away from you on the art and it's actually still riding that way, but the rocks are kicking up behind it as it's moving towards you in the art, so it's definitely the wrong way. Maybe it's just going in reverse. Lucas says, when in your opinion do you think we'll be getting another re-release of the UCS Star Destroyer? It's my favorite UCS set, and I definitely think it could be the coolest Star Wars set aesthetically since the Star Destroyer re-release looked great. And I agree. I don't think it'll be as big of a change from that original Star Destroyer to the new Star Destroyer, because when that Super Star Destroyer came out, it was already really, really good in 2011. That being said, I would not expect a Super Star Destroyer re-release until they retire that UCS Star Destroyer, and I would at least say a year or two after that as well. I can't imagine they're not thinking about as something farther down the pipeline to have come out, if not already working on, just to have ready for when they have a release slot for it. So yeah, Super Star Destroyer to me seems like a lock for some point within the next decade, but I think first the current Star Destroyer has to retire, and then you just have to give it a little breathing room. JZK Brick says, I have been considering buying the Christmas X-Wing as a collector with relatively few sets compared to you. Are rare sets like that worth the price? Are they likely to greatly increase in price, or should I buy a regularly available, much larger set for the same current price? So you're looking at probably what, $500 to $700 on that one. I'm not sure what the current value is. But that being said, the Christmas X-Wing is one of the coolest exclusive Star Wars sets I think anyone can own. The box is really sick, and the build is even sicker. It's just a really dope set. If you buy it new in box, when you open the box, you're going to devalue it. That's just how it works. If you're going to buy it, keep it sealed in box, it's only ever going to go up in value. This thing is not being re-released. Star Wars isn't going anywhere. Lego isn't going anywhere. So, you know, the thing will only continue to kind of edge up in value, at least in line with inflation. You're never going to lose money on something like this, I would say. I say go for it. It's a great seasonal piece too. You can only put it out, you know, November and December, and that makes it all the more special for you, I would say. So I totally recommend that. Now, it's hard to look at other sets at the $500 to $700 range, like the Star Destroyer, and, you know, you're comparing what you get as far as like the size of the thing, and obviously it's not very comparable, but as far as an exclusive thing that is most definitely not going to go down in value and will only continue to slowly rise over time. I think the Christmas X-Wing is a great one. Jackson Lanau says, would you be mad or happy if the UCS AT-AT box had the Republic logo on it instead of the Imperial one? After all people really remember is a white star inside of a circle with some black lines around it. So the second part of your question makes me definitely realize it is a joke of a question. That being said, I'm not actively rooting for LEGO Star Wars to be bad. I didn't want the gunship to have an Imperial logo on it. I know I got a lot of content out of that, but like it's not a good thing. I would never be happy for LEGO to make a mistake like that. As funny as it can be that there is a gross incompetence there at a multi-billion-dollar company, I don't want it to be there. Like, I just don't. I want LEGO Star Wars to be really good, you know? So that's why I say the things I say. But yeah, no, I don't. I would not be happy about that. I would be rather upset, just like I was with the gunship. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have a question you want answered on next week's episode, make sure to leave in the comments section below. If you're new to the channel, you can subscribe, and you can check out more Ask M&R Productions on the end screen now.